Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I'm Scott. It's a new vlog week. Pretty much just doing one vlog entry this week. So I'm going to go and get started. I do have to do a quick follow-up to last week. Red, White, and Royal Blue. I actually never gave a star ranking on it. This is 4.5 stars. So got that taken care of. So I'm going to talk about two books that I actually did finish this week. The first is On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. It is a graphic novel. I have talked before about some issues I had with it. It didn't really connect with the story for quite a bit into the story itself. It got to a point where a slight spoiler where in the earlier time line, I guess, the two girls have to say goodbye to each other. That's when I actually started to really get into it. One other problem I had with it that I mentioned before is that it's been difficult to read because the print of the words is pretty small. I have to say, overall, I don't really feel like I connected to this. It just I don't know if it's just that I'm not the type of person that many graphic novels work for. I have run into some before that I have appreciated, but this one just wasn't doing it for me. I don't think that the character drawings were distinctive enough. One of the female characters got a haircut and she looked too much like one of the other male characters, and it was confusing. I really like the characters of Mia and Grace and their blossoming love story, but the story in the later timeline I just really did not connect with at all. I didn't understand some of what happened in it too. I I don't want to say that I'm not ever going to read another graphic novel. One, I believe that is incorrect. I almost certainly will read one, but I'm not going to be in any hurry to, and I'm probably going to be less likely to do one by somebody I haven't already had a good experience with. So I'm going to give this a 2.5 stars out of 5. Uh, it's not for me. Not to say it wouldn't be good for somebody else, but for me, it just does not work. Next book I finished is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. It is the time travel, time slipping romance novel. I generally liked it. I think it could have been better. Uh, Minor quibbles with it. I think there's a severe lack of curiosity that the characters tend to have. I don't know why, for example, either one of them wouldn't do a better job of trying to find the other. I explained it last week, but it's about a woman who has an apartment. Her aunt's apartment. Her aunt has died, I believe, like 6 months previously. It's a magic apartment, and the apartment itself, within this confines of the apartment, it will go 7 years in the past. You can go into the apartment, and it'll be 7 years previous, and whoever was there 7 years before might be there. One, I think that's a little bit convenient because it was her aunt's apartment, and her aunt is just not there for the time because she's traveling, which is something her aunt did a lot. And so she meets this man, and it's like every time she goes to the apartment, and it is 7 years previous, if the guy's not there, he will eventually be there. Like I said, I don't know why they didn't do better research on each other. Spoiler alert, slight one. He does know at some point in the book that she is 7 years ahead of him. She He knows her name. She knows his middle name, but there's also enough information about him that I don't buy that she couldn't have found him if she tried. Now, to be fair, he had 7 years to locate her. She only had a few months because she's only known him those, I believe it was 3 months from when she first found him. I appreciated the story itself. The romance. I talked previously in other vlogs and videos about, do I believe this couple will last? I don't I don't know whether or not this couple will last or not. I don't necessarily see the spark uh, in their relationship that they seem to see. So uh, I, I I appreciated reading it, but I don't think it particularly worked as a romance. Um, I had issues with it as a science fiction type book with the whole time travel thing, and not with the whole 7 years back. That's fine. If I'm going to accept things, I accept that. My problem is with characters not doing something that it would make sense for them to do, but they don't do it for the purpose of the plot. So I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars. I want to give it more. I also kind of want to give it less too. So I feel comfortable with 3.5 stars. My Heart is a Chainsaw. I am very, very slowly getting through this book. I'm 208 pages into a nearly 400-page book. I've gotten to the point in the book where I don't feel it's necessarily all about the main character. I don't feel like she is all that I am seeing. I also am beginning to understand that it's not quite the type of book that I was expecting, which I appreciate, but I also didn't really appreciate getting like 170 pages in to finally see that. So I'm enjoying it slowly more than I was before, but it's still a very slow read for me, and I'm glad that I have other books to tamper that with. Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. I am 50 pages in. A man has died, and he's basically being guided in the afterlife. Uh, I know people really love this book. My own daughter seems to have a deep appreciation for it. I think I just haven't gotten far enough in the book yet. I just have an issue with characters or people who are kind of passive aggressive or unnecessarily condescending or snide or whatever it is. It's just the Reaper and the Ferryman just seem to be that way. Not that Wallace is a super nice character or anything, but he hasn't really done anything yet to warrant their treatment of him. he may very well, but to me, you got to let the person warrant the disrespect before you give the disrespect. Uh, like I said, my daughter has read this. I talked about how I don't really like May, the Reaper, yet. Robin feels like I should. So I'm hoping that that means that she becomes a more interesting character later. But right now, the closest I can say is they seem like members of government bureaucracy, and that makes them unlikable. It may change. I assume it will change. Uh, Wallace isn't terribly likable, but he's dead. He just died. I can appreciate that. He obviously wasn't extremely likable in his life, but I'm interested in his story. I just have to get past apparently this awkward getting to know you and what death is like phase, which maybe the ferryman has uh, an excuse in that he's been doing this crap a long time. But May is new at this job, so she shouldn't have the old timers like Murtaugh, I'm too old for this shit kind of thing. But she does. I am reading two Tessa Bailey books. One is It Happened One Summer that I found out about from a Jack Edwards video. A like an LA socialite gets into trouble, gets arrested. Her stepfather, who is like a Hollywood producer, is fed up with her doing stuff like this. So he makes her go to her father, who has passed away when she was very young. Uh, his bar that he owned, which they kept but haven't done anything with. And basically she has to be there for like 3 months and to get her act together basically. And she meets a sea captain there who wife has died 7 years previously. It's I have actually seen a movie almost exactly like this, except that the guy wasn't a sea captain, but the socialite being sent to her father's like previous place of business. I've seen that. I think it was like a Lifetime Christmas movie, but I'm not sure. I expected it to be very humor based, and it was for a little bit, but it's actually gotten a lot more serious. I'm like 160 pages into it. I don't know where I see this going now. I assume just based on the fact that it's a romance, that they're obviously going to end up together. I don't know how they're going in together because I do not see him leaving the sea. And I don't necessarily see her, at least right now, sticking around there. They can possibly pull me to that happening, but it seems unlikely. But their interactions have been amusing, and I buy their attraction. If I were to ask the question I asked uh, previously with 7 Years Left, do I see these two sticking together? Right now, no, but as of right now, in the book, they haven't actually gotten together. So I'm interested in it, and I'm willing to see where it leads. I am also I'm also reading Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. I say reading, but I have read 4 pages, so I don't have a lot to say about this. It is definitely a enemies to lovers type the story a marriage of convenience type of thing. Apparently, it's one of those ones where somebody has to marry somebody for them to be able to receive their inheritance or their trust fund or something like that. And that's the woman, Natalie, and the man is August. There's lots of men named August or Augustus in romance books. Apparently, he apparently owns a winery or a vineyard. He apparently owns a vineyard. She has wine expertise, so apparently it's going to be kind of a beneficial thing, and they will grow closer together. Apparently, as the author makes clear in a note before the start of the book, apparently he is attracted to her. August is attracted to Natalie, but whenever they're around each other, they argue. I do not know whether or not she is initially attracted to him or not. So we'll see. Next, I have not actually started reading this yet. I do have to start reading it this week. It is Horns by Joe Hill. I talked in a video previously about it's my pick for the book club that my family does, and I made a selection, basically process elimination, which you can watch that video on my channel, where I pick a book club out of about like 10 or 11 selections, where I pick a book out for the book club. And I picked Horns, which I have read previously, but it's been a long time since I've read it. It's going to be interesting because one, when I mentioned in the book club what book I have picked, is that I got a little bit of pushback because apparently some people don't like horror. Which, okay, I mean, I don't particularly like thrillers or the thrillers that they pick for book club, but they sure do keep picking them a lot. But I have to make sure I read it soon. One, to come up with questions to ask for book club, but also to kind of see if there's anything I need to warn people about before they read it. I think we should do in the book club anyway, because everybody has something that might bother them. Like, if there's anything with eyes, if anything is being done to eyes in a book, if I'm in a book club, you better be telling me that stuff, you know, because I'm not going to read that without having some foreknowledge of that. So I like the book. I've read it before. It's been a long time since I've read it. It's not my favorite Joe Hill book. I actually like his collections even more than his novels, maybe. And I probably like Heart Shaped Box and Nosferatu more than Horns. Although I definitely like Horns more than the Fireman. Just a quick recommendation: if you've not read Joe Hill before, if you get the chance, if there's one thing you should read, read Pop Art, which is in the book 20th Century Ghosts. It's one of my favorite short stories ever. So I am also reading volume 3 of Guy de Maupassant's short story collection. Volume 1 was basically about the Franco-Prussian War. Volume 2 was, I said it was about French ennui, about basically middle lower class French people in their lives. Volume 3 seems to be a lot about relationships. I'm a little bit more than halfway through the book. I will update more next week because I should finish it by the end of next week. So I am good to go there. I've also started reading Vicious by V.e Schwab, I believe. It's basically a possibly a revenge novel about two people who I believe are basically making superheroes. The fact that one of them is named Victor, as in Victor Frankenstein, I'm assuming, a little on the nose. Um, it's okay so far. I really can't judge it. I'm about 10% of the way through the novel. Chapters are very short. The writing is mediocre, I guess I will say. It, some pretty lame turns of phrases, I think. I can't really judge right now because, like I said, I'm only at a certain place. All I know is Victor and Eli, I believe, were doing something about the superhero or superpowers thing in college, in that in the future, Victor has spent 10 years in jail and he's out now, he's escaped, and he wants vengeance on Eli for some reason. And that's kind of where we're at. I am also listening to Don Quixote. I'm about 60% of the way through it. Which means I've read one novel, because Don Quixote is actually two novels published 10 years apart, part one and part two. I finished part one. I've talked about it before. I got a little tired of the repetition of Don Quixote getting his ass beat all throughout the book, and I appreciated that in the latter half of part one, it started giving me stories of other people, which I got more interested in. I'm in part two now, and it's only set, I believe, a few months in the future from part one, even though it was written 10 years later. But in the meantime, somebody has written a book about Don Quixote. So within the book itself, characters have read about Don Quixote. And so he's going out on other adventures, and people are trying to stop him, which it's just a weird thing that one, because he's mad, people are trying to stop him, but because he's mad, people also laughing at him and enjoying his madness. There's this whole thing about sanity and how people view it. I assume in that time, it's like you get like the priest trying to protect Don Quixote, but also making fun of him with others. So it's a little weird. Um, I will finish it this month. We have what, 2 weeks left in the month, and I have like 14 hours left in the book. So I have not started this either, but I need to finish it before the end of the month. PG Wodehouse's The Pothunters, which I will be discussing in a podcast I do about PG Wodehouse. It's a short novel. It's like 120 pages long. It's Wodehouse's first published novel, published when he was 21. It's a school story, I believe. So being a school story, it's about these kids at a boarding school. There's, unlike many of the books that I have read by Woodhouse, no romance, pretty much no women. So it's just teenage boys, which, I mean, I guess it could be okay, but I don't know. First novel in teenage boys, and just words. Bleh. Just knowing Woodhouse's writing as well as I do, that doesn't lead me to believe that it's going to be a great read, but I could be wrong. So that is it for this week. Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment, and I will talk to you next week.